What's going on today, you guys? Welcome to Quarantine episode number 3. This week we're talking about how you can think of practicing more simply. Let's get right into it. Alright, you guys, so especially at the college level and later high school level, it gets really crazy with all the things that you have to start practicing. Really complex chord changes, really complex polyrhythms, really complex feels, all these different things get really intense. And a lot of times this can start to get really overwhelming, even to the point where you don't want to practice because you don't really know where to start. At the end of the day, the only reason we're really practicing is to make better music and to be able to think more simply on the bandstand. You want to get those complex ideas out in the beginning so you can have the simpler ideas on the bandstand and to be able to improvise more freely. I want to be able to play anything that comes to my mind and anything that makes musical sense in the moment, and practicing really complex things all the time can actually make your brain patterns way more complex. And we want to make these brain patterns really simple and direct and to the point, so when you're on the bandstand or when you're in an intense situation on stage, you want to be able to make these decisions really quickly. Often when I start to simplify what I'm going to practice and simplify what I'm thinking about while I'm practicing, this really starts to help my productivity and what I can get done in a shorter amount of time. So here's a few ideas I have to start simplifying your practice sessions. Number 1 is that you don't always have to be working out of a book. A lot of times your teacher will give you these different books to work on, technique exercises, patterns, all these different things that you could be working on, different tunes even, chord changes. And you don't always have to be doing this to get better. Of course, these things definitely help, and working on your technique and working on all these fundamentals are absolutely imperative, but there are other ways of going about it if you're really not into books. And I did this for a really long time. I worked out of books for a super long time, and now I'm kind of at a stage where I don't like to work out of books too much unless they're really simple. So that's the first thing, working out of really simple books, really simple patterns that you can build upon, and things that you can make really creative. But second of all, if you're really not into books at all, you can make these patterns for yourself. You can create these patterns specifically on the drums. Books like Syncopation and the Jim Chapin book, these patterns can be easily written out or even easily thought of on the spot. You just have to go through 1, and of 1, 2, and a 2 between the bass drum and the snare drum, and you can get really creative with this, doing it with the hi-hat and the bass drum, all these different things. And I'm sure these concepts can relate to other instruments really well also. It's basically just writing out your own exercises, and this is a way to engage your brain much more than just reading right out of a book. And it actually becomes much more simple to think about when you're creating these things yourself. So yeah, you can create all these really creative exercises on your own without working out of a book at all. So number 2 is to start mindfully practicing. And this means not just sitting down and playing whatever you want all the time when you sit down at the drums. I'm definitely really bad at this. I sit down at the drums a lot and just play for an hour straight and can't even think of what happened for that last hour. So it's definitely a good idea to write down a few really simple things before you start to practice so that you have a few goals and guidelines to go on when you start your practice session. So for instance, you wanted to start doing some syncopation patterns between the snare drum and the bass drum. Second of all, you wanted to work on your up-tempo ride pattern. Third, you wanted to work on some tune you wanted to work on. If you just do these 3 things, even 1 or 2 things, it'll make it much more simple to think about, and you'll be able to track your progress much better. Having a few small goals in your practice sessions like this helps so much because it makes you be way more mindful of what you're practicing, and you're able to track your progress much better in your mind. So number 3, and going back to my last video, is mimicking other musicians. This can be really simple, but it can also be really fun. It can be as simple as watching a video of one of the musicians you really love and mimicking them on the drums or mimicking them on the saxophone or whatever instrument you play. Each specific musician has really unique things about them, whether it be their movements, whether it be fingering patterns, whether it be how they hold the drumstick. All these different things are super unique, and mimicking these musicians you really love is a really important thing to be doing. So also another really important thing when you're mimicking musicians is transcribing their playing. I've done a lot of transcribing in school specifically, and this isn't for everybody, but even transcribing really small parts of their playing, even like a bar, a specific fill, a specific lick, or whatever. Don't go playing their licks verbatim, but you get to start thinking how this musician is coming up with what they're playing. It really gets you into the mind of these specific musicians, and it can really get you to start thinking about how they're thinking. And this can become a really creative endeavor, and it can make you start thinking on your own in really creative ways. Number 4 is playing along with records. It goes along very much with the last one, which is mimicking musicians and transcribing some of their playing. Playing along with records can help you feel so much, especially records that you really love and that you want to sound like. Play along with like a Miles Davis record, Second Quintet, whatever you love. It's all really great stuff, and this is a really great way to practice. The only really important thing to be thinking about while you're playing along with records is what you're trying to get out of it. Usually for me, I'm trying to get feel out of records. Sometimes I'll be trying to get comping out of records, and sometimes I'm just trying to get into the heads of the musicians that are playing on this record. And a lot of times playing along with a record can get you to see things that you wouldn't normally see in a record. Number 5 and the last one is metronome practice. This is really important for me, and it can be really simple or really difficult. The way I like to simplify my metronome practice is by putting the metronome somewhere from 10 to 40 BPM and subdividing the different things into many different things. Let's pull it up and look at it right now. So the metronome I usually use is Metronomics. It's an app on the App Store. It's a little bit expensive, but it's really cool. So my metronome right now is on 23 BPM, so when you have the metronome this slow, you really need to listen to it for a second and start to internalize the tempo. So there you have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can play in different time signatures. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so on and so on. You can do tons of different time signatures. You can do different subdivisions on 4. You can do metric modulations. You can really take this to a crazy place. And this is one of the ways I've helped my time the very most. I originally got this from Matt Brewer, who has some of the best time I've ever heard, so it's definitely a credible source. So yeah, guys, there's 5 of my ideas to simplify your practice sessions. And yeah, it's really just about getting into the practice room and doing things mindfully. You just want to be thinking about what you're doing, but not overthinking about what you're doing. Thank you guys so much for watching again today. If you have any comments or questions, please put them down in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. And lastly, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel if you like this video and want to see more like it. Thanks so much, guys, and I hope you have a great day.